right, good morning, everyone. It's around 7 o'clock a.m., and I'm very happy to start this workshop series with you because I think that it's going to help you to focus on your most valuable asset, which is your knowledge. And so, basically, this is the agenda. We're going to talk about, what is knowledge and why you should focus on developing it and selling it in today's AI environment. So, we're going to focus on the 5 phases that will help you to visualize how you're going to benefit from extracting, exporting, and packaging your knowledge. And I'm going to share with you the framework maps so that you can continually add value to your information and your knowledge. And so, this group is about making money with AI, right? But I think that the easiest and the simplest and the fastest way to make money with AI is actually to focus on your knowledge, because this is your most important asset. This is, the asset that took you a lot of time to develop. And in fact, it's because you have knowledge that you have a job. Okay? So if you currently have a job, especially a knowledge work job, where you're working behind a computer, it's because you have knowledge. So this workshop series aims to help you to develop your knowledge and package it in such a way that you can monetize it. And it's important to monetize your knowledge because in this year, I predict that in 2026, your knowledge, its value will go down to zero. It will go down to zero because artificial intelligence will contain your knowledge and the knowledge of all your colleagues within your profession, whether it's accounting, whether it's management, project management, whether it's search engine optimization, website programming. Your knowledge is going to be worth zero. That's my prediction. I might be wrong, but I think that I've studied AI since 2016, 10 years ago. So I'm pretty confident that most of the knowledge work jobs that people have will be eliminated. So it's important to try to find a second source of income, and focusing on and capitalizing on your knowledge is a very good bet. But let's go back 8 years ago. Let's go back at the beginning, in 2018, when I gave a conference on artificial intelligence at Concordia University. And I want to give you a summary of that conference of 1 hour so that you have the right context to be able to understand knowledge and why it is so important. So in that conference, I was saying that in the future, there's going to be two kinds of people who have a job, okay? And they basically work inside of two different buildings. And at the time, I called it building number 1 and building number 2. So you notice right away that building number 1 is much bigger. Actually, building number 2, it's much smaller. But I wanted to illustrate that you can only work in one of these two buildings, okay? So in building number 1, where most people are, there's going to be 4 different levels or 4 floors. And in building number 2, I don't care too much. There are different floors, but basically building number 1 is made up of all the professionals. So on LinkedIn alone, we have like over 1 billion professionals. They're not all professionals. Some of them are manual workers, but by and large, they're professionals. Hold on, let me just make sure I record. Alright, so I'm using my computer to record this webinar in case something happens to my internet connection. So most of the professionals, and most likely your friends and family, they are working in building number 1. I'll explain later. But in building number 2, I have only one person that I know, my cousin, who's working in building number 2. And building number 2 has to do with professionals and researchers in machine learning and deep learning. So these are the people who are making millions of dollars in their job. They're working for big tech companies like Google, Meta, Apple, and they're all involved in AI. Okay, OpenAI, Anthropic. The chances that you're going to be working in this building is very slim. So that's why, like in 2008, I focused on helping people in this building number one. But in building number one, you have to know how you're going to be able to go to the upper floors. Okay, and it's all based on knowledge. Building number two is based on data and compute power and data centers. So let's take a look at building number one here before we dive into um, the proper workshop on how to extract and monetize your knowledge. So basically in building number one, let me just draw it here. We have a kind of pyramid, and your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to try to go up this pyramid where you're going to have more money, you're going to make more, you're going to have more power, more status, etc. So basically on the first floor, we have knowledge. So this is where you're a student and you're learning, or you can also be a teachers who are sharing knowledge. So either way, this is about knowledge. So you're not doing anything, you're just manipulating, sharing, discussing knowledge, which is a foundation, by the way. And so this is where knowledge workers start their journey, whether they're accountants, managers, whether they're search engine optimization specialist, copywriter. This is where we all start. Okay, and we want to get to the second level, and this is what I call the intelligence level, and this is where we have professionals. So the 1 billion users on LinkedIn, they're mostly here at the second level. But as I mentioned in my conference 2018, most people are not conscious that there's a third level, level 3, and there's a fourth level. And so that's what I was trying to help them to get. The third level I represent by an X, and that means you have expert systems and also explicit knowledge. Explicit knowledge simply means knowledge that is outside of your head. For example, knowledge in the form of an ebook, a computer file, a procedure, a workshop, a video recording, an audio recording, etc. So explicit as opposed to tacit knowledge. So the professionals here, they have tacit knowledge. Tacit means that it's inside of their heads. Okay. So that was the challenge that I posed to the attendees of my conference 2018. The challenge is that you have to export your knowledge to have expert systems or explicit knowledge, ebooks, video courses, etc. So here it's about intelligence, right? The second level. But here it's more than intelligence, it's intelligibility. And intelligibility is when your intelligence is understood, intelligible to other people. In other words, to be intelligent is one thing, but to be intelligible, that's the next level. So let me think of an analogy. Suppose that you're a great cook, you're intelligent in the kitchen, but if you create a recipe for your dishes, then you become intelligible. In other words, intelligibility is about the ability of other people to understand what you're doing. So if you have a recipe, that's intelligibility, because when you go down like a recipe, you know exactly what to do. But if you don't have a recipe, then it means that you, as a cook, you're going to be forced to do the dishes because nobody else can do what you're doing. Okay, and that's the level where most professionals are stuck. Like 99.9% of the 1 billion LinkedIn users, they're stuck here because they have intelligence, right? They can do a job, but they haven't figured out that you have to move to the next level where their intelligence, their knowledge, their methodologies, whatever they're doing every day, they haven't realized that they have to convert their intelligence into intelligibility. In other words, they have to create recipes or knowledge that is explicit so that other people can replicate their results. And then at level 4, we have what I call IA for intelligence augmentation. And the best example of intelligence augmentation is Tony Stark, for example. Tony Stark has a certain intelligence, but Jarvis, which is his personal AI, Jarvis is augmenting his intelligence so that he becomes much more capable. So that's the ultimate level where you want to be, intelligence augmentation. So when we look back at these two buildings, like I said, the chances that you're going to go back to school and do a degree in statistics or mathematics and computer science in order to work in this building, it's very slim. Like, I don't think that anyone in this Facebook group would ever work in building number 2. If you happen to be an AI researcher and computer science and machine learning data scientist, great, you're going to make a lot of money. But I think most people are going to be working in building number 1. But like I said, in building number 1, there are 4 levels, and I just explained here how you can graduate from level 1 to level 2, 3, and 4. So now that you have this background in mind, we're going to focus on how you can move from level 2 to level 3. To level 3, where your knowledge is explicit and intelligible, so that other people can benefit from what you know. And so basically that's going to be the focus of the workshop from now on. So first of all, this workshop is about knowledge. So we have to define exactly what knowledge is, because yes, knowledge is what allows you to do your job, because that's why they have a job interview, and they want to see exactly what you know and what you're capable of doing. But exactly what is knowledge? And it's a term that is similar to intelligence. People use it, but nobody really defines knowledge. So in my research, because I've been studying knowledge since 1998, I'm going to talk more about that later on, when I was at McGill University. So I've been studying knowledge management for like almost like 30 years. So I have a pretty good understanding of knowledge, but most people don't, right? They use their knowledge in their heads, but they don't clearly define it. And if you don't define your most valuable asset properly, then it's impossible for you to leverage it in order to create more value and make more money. So knowledge basically is the capacity effective action. And what we mean by effective is that you have to produce a result consistently. So a very simple example that any teenager can understand, if I ask you, do you have omelet making knowledge? Do you have omelet making knowledge? And you would say yes, because you know how to make an omelet, right? You go into the kitchen, you open the fridge, you grab 2 eggs, you heat up the stove, and then you put a pan and you put the butter, and then you do an omelet. So everybody has omelet making knowledge, because everyone has a capacity for effective action in the kitchen to make an omelet. So that's kind of easy to understand. But it's very important to understand that, because knowledge is not just some information that you have in your mind. So let's take a look at what is not knowledge. Okay, so you might say, and a lot of people mistakenly believe that, oh, if I go to university, I'll acquire knowledge. No, not necessarily. If I go to Wikipedia I'll acquire knowledge. No, not necessarily. If I go to the library and I read a lot of books, I'll acquire knowledge. No, not necessarily. Knowledge, once again, is when you're able to do something, right? And from what you're doing, you're getting results consistently that are positive. That's what knowledge is. It doesn't matter how many diplomas you have, and which is why more and more companies today, they don't really care about your education, your certification. They're just going to test you. The job interview doesn't, it's not a job interview anymore. It's really like a test, and if you can do the task, they will give you the job. So knowledge is really when you're able to actually do something consistently. It's not a one-shot deal. You have to be able to do it consistently. So for example, I have copywriting knowledge because I can write copy for any kind and they will produce much better results. So I have copywriting knowledge. I have knowledge about how to create a course because I've done that many times in the last 20 years. So knowledge is really the ability to actually do something. Knowledge is not information. So let me just drive home that point, because again, in the West, people confuse knowledge with information, and the two are really different. And even data is different, right? So at the very bottom you have data. So data, can be 1, 2, 3. It can be a date. It can be facts, etc. Information is more structured than data. So there's a certain pattern in information. So it has higher value than data. But what is even better than information, for example, Wikipedia or books, including textbooks, what is even better than information is knowledge. So knowledge is the ability to do something and produce consistent results. And ultimately, knowledge, when it's packaged as a recipe, that it becomes an algorithm. So we're not going to talk too much about algorithms today, but that's the goal. So the idea today is to go from information in your head, which typically is very messy, because in our heads, it's very dark. We have tons of memories. It's all mixed up in the neural network that we call our brain. But our challenge is to move from information to knowledge. And once again, the information you have in your head, that is part of your intelligence. But when you move from intelligence to knowledge here, you become intelligible. So intelligibility is really, really the key here, because once you are intelligible to other people, then that's when you're going to be able to make so much money. And that has been my experience in the last 20 years. And so just to give you an example of the power of intelligibility over intelligence, I'm going to take the case of project management, a course that I developed at Taft College. So the course is project management, and I created a 15-week course, and I was paid $80 an hour. So even though my project management experience is very limited compared to other project management that I know who were making like 80 to 90,000 per year, the problem they had was that they had intelligence, but they didn't have intelligibility. In other words, whatever was inside of their heads was not accessible to other people. But what is inside of my head, I converted it into a course of 15 weeks, and that's how I was able to make that kind of money. And so you can see here that intelligibility is very different from intelligence. Intelligibility allows you to generate an additional income stream, right? Like I was making money as a project coordinator, but I'm also making money as a teacher of project management because I was able to create intelligible curriculum or courses, okay? Whereas my 3 project manager friends, they were stuck with this job. So in order to have financial freedom, you have to free your knowledge. You have to liberate your knowledge. And the way that I explain it is that in order to liberate your knowledge, so this is the typical professional, the way to liberate your knowledge, so here you have knowledge inside of your head, you have to make your knowledge cross this barrier. See the barrier here? And this barrier is what I call the 6.5 millimeter barrier. And this is basically the thickness of your skull. So the 1 billion users of LinkedIn, they have valuable knowledge, but their knowledge is trapped inside of their heads, and they haven't verbalized that knowledge. They haven't exported that knowledge beyond the, the barrier here. Because if they did verbalize their knowledge, they would have, ebooks, they would have videos, and they would have courses, and even web applications, which are easy to create today with Base 44, Gemini, Claude, etc. So they would have all of these assets to make money from, right? So these are assets and products to make money from. But now the only way for them to make money is through a job, because the job is designed to extract their knowledge, right? So when they go to the office, they interact with their job, their cubicle, their coworkers, and the knowledge comes out. But the problem is that the knowledge comes out only 40 hours per week. Here, if they had ebooks and video courses and applications, the knowledge would come out 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so they would be making money all the time, even while they're sleeping. So that's the major financial advantage of people who convert their knowledge or articulate their knowledge into ebooks, video courses, and applications. And that's what I've been doing in the last 20 years. Okay? It's very important to understand that. So to drive home this point even further, I'm going to show you, economically speaking, what's happening. So right now, if you're a professional, you have an employer who's signing your paycheck. So what you do typically is that you provide services, whatever it is that you're doing at the office. You could be generating PowerPoint presentations or Excel spreadsheets, or you could be writing reports. And in return, your employer gives you a paycheck. And this is what most people know. That's all they know. This is how their parents, their teachers, their schools, their universities, that's how they've been trained to think. After you graduate, you got to go out there and you got to get a job. So this is really about getting a job. But as you'll see this year, jobs will be eliminated by AI. So you have to be smart and wise and try to find additional ways to generate an income. Now, it's very possible that you get to keep your job, but even if you keep your job, it doesn't hurt when you have an additional source of income. So how do we generate this additional source of income? Well, you have to go beyond services, and you have to create a product, which we're going to represent with this cube. Okay, so this cube represents ebooks, video courses, anything that another person can understand. It can be a procedure, it can be an algorithm, a software program, anything that other people can understand, so that they can have and they can produce the same results that you're producing for your employer. But for you to get to this product, right, so it could be an ebook, could be a webinar, could be a video, etc., could be a web application, a blueprint. There's like over 100 different information product formats. For you to get to this cube, it's going to be a journey, and this journey cannot be done by you alone. You need help. I mean, you can do it alone, but it's going to take you 5-10 years, but by that time your knowledge is obsolete. And so this is why I'm creating what I call the Intellectual Capital Academy, and people will be able to join for only $100 a year or $30 per month. So I'm going to talk more about this, but it's not important to focus on this Intellectual Capital Academy. Right now, what is important to understand is how are you going to go from offering a service to creating a product, because this is a product, an information product that you can sell to people all over the world. That's your main focus. Because once again, remember, if you don't create a product based on your knowledge and you keep the knowledge trapped in your head, you are never, ever, ever going to be financially free. You're going to be stuck working for your employer till you're 65, and it's going to drain you, it's going to stress you. AI is coming, the stress is coming also. So you want to export your valuable knowledge into products like ebooks, video courses, etc., so that you can generate a second source of income, okay, through products. So, this is kind of easy. You get a job, everybody knows how to do that. Like you can be a sales clerk for a store, you can be a cook at a fast food restaurant, you can be a janitor. Everyone understands what a service is. All kinds of services, massage therapy, copywriting, you can be a graphic designer, it's all services. But what I invite you to consider is a new way of creating value and making money, and that's based on a product. Okay. One quick difference between a service and a product is that when you offer a service, you're working, right? But it's working as a verb. So you go to the office and you work. You work, I work, they work. But here, when we talk about a product, work is not a verb. Work is a noun. So people talk about my life's work, they refer to a product that they're creating. So here, when you're offering a service, work is a verb. You have to work. But here, work is a noun. So my work, my life's work, it's really a noun. Okay. So let me see. And by the way, I just want to mention something interesting. I use these aluminum cans because I cut them and I turn them into aluminum boards like this, and I use like a dry erase marker to write. This to me is very much like a whiteboard, the kind that you're using in the classroom. And so for me, for you it might be different, but for me, I find that when I actually touch and I hear the sound of these aluminum boards or sheets, I feel that my knowledge is becoming more and more tangible, right? Like, it's not the same as when I type on my laptop or computer. When I use these boards, I feel like my knowledge, which previously was inside of my head, my knowledge is becoming really tangible. So I feel good, right? So the process where you're creating products, it has to fit your style. It has to be something that is sensual. You can actually enjoy. I very much enjoy writing on those aluminum sheets. And so just an aside, to encourage you, because the process where you're going to export your knowledge and create information products, it can be very intellectual. It can be very cerebral. So you need to do something that will allow you to feel with your body, feel with your hands, feel with your ears, because I can actually listen to the sound that I'm making. So anyways, that's just a detail, but it's a detail that might make a big difference in your journey to extract and export your knowledge. So here I want to show you a diagram that shows my journey. So in the 1990s, I was basically working as a marketing communication specialist for a lot of Fortune 500 companies like American Express, IBM. I worked for about a dozen different companies, including the Ministry of Justice and the Ministry of Immigration. That's the Canadian government. And so when I was working for those companies, so like I said before, I was offering a service and I got paid in return. And then starting from 2005, 2006, I went up the ladder, so to speak, and especially in 2017, I began to work for a college, Taft College, which is an excellent college. And so instead of serving just one person, I was typically offering a service to about 20 or 25 students per classroom, which is good, right? I'm becoming more useful to more people. So it's not just one boss that I was reporting to, but it was 20 to 25 students. But then in 2023, after I played with ChatGPT for 2 weeks, I realized that teaching is not the way. AI is the way forward. So I quit my job in January 2023 in order to go even higher, and now I'm in a position to serve the world with my information products. I also offer services, of course, in the form of Zoom sessions. So I offer services, but mostly I am selling products, ebooks, software programs, source code, etc. And I can serve the world, especially because now AI can translate everything that I'm saying into multiple languages. And it's really amazing. You probably heard about it, but I can upload a sample of my voice, for example, this live stream, and the AI is going to translate my voice into French, Spanish, Italian, Mandarin, but it's going to keep my voice. So you're going to hear me, you're going to hear me talk in Italian, in Spanish, and you're going to recognize my voice. I don't speak Italian, by the way. The only thing I know how to say is sono molto contento di vederti, which is I'm very happy to see you. And the only reason why I know that is that, in high school I dated this beautiful Italian girl, and that's what I wanted to say. And today I think she's an attorney for the Ministry of Justice. But I can use AI to translate everything that I'm saying using my own voice into Mandarin, into Vietnamese, into French. I speak French, but German, I don't know, Russian, Ukrainian. I mean, this is absolutely crazy. And so once you articulate your knowledge, AI is going to be able to help you. But it's important to focus on your most valuable asset, which is your knowledge. And I'm just gonna talk quickly about why people don't really focus on their knowledge. And probably the main reason is that they've never done it. Like if in your network you don't have somebody like me who is pointing the way, who is encouraging you to develop information products, then chances are you're going to remain in this trap. I call it a trap. You're going to remain in your job here forever until you're 65. And so hopefully you're going to be inspired and motivated by this workshop series, and you're going to realize that, hey, there are other ways to make money, and you can go up the ladder here. Because frankly, what is happening right now is that you only see this in your mind. Your belief system says that, look, I studied hard, I got a degree from university, and I'm working for a company. I'm making $80,000 a year. I'm making $90,000 a year or more. I'm going to be in a job for the rest of my life. And a job is the only thing I have to be able to make money. And therefore, I want to do very well at my job and make sure that AI doesn't take away my job. Or as Jensen Huang, the founder and CEO of NVIDIA, I want to make sure that another person, typically a young person, who uses AI is not going to be able to take away my job. Okay, but I want to show you new ways to make money, and this is where I, remove the curtain, and you see that you can actually teach like I did in the last 20 years, and not just teaching, but you can create products, and these products are ebooks, video courses, web applications, blueprints, procedures, standard operating manuals. These are products that you can sell to the world, right? To the world, guys, okay? So this is where you're going to be able to make a lot of money. And so, services is one way to make money. Teaching, this is not a service, it's more like teaching. Teaching is another way to make money. Creating and selling products is yet another way to make money. So on the topic of making money, I just want to share with you, like in my research, I found basically 5 basic ways to make money. And unfortunately, most people know only one way. So I call it the 5 ways to make money. Just want to summarize quickly. Though, so the first way to make money is when you're offering a service, and everybody knows this, including teenagers who show up at the local McDonald's and they apply for a job and they get a job. So, including massage therapists, you're you're a professional, you graduate from university, you're making money from a job. The second way to make money is teaching. So, for example, in my case, I started teaching um, 20 years ago. So, teaching is a very pleasant way to make money. And in my opinion, teaching is the best way to make money. Because think about it, you're just talking to people or a group of people, and you're explaining something, and you're talking about something that you're passionate about, your knowledge about, and guess what? You get paid money. I mean, it doesn't get any sweeter than that, right? So teaching for me absolutely is probably the best way to make money. The third way to make money is selling. Like sometimes people have this desire to give themselves a challenge. So they look at every person as a kind of chess game, right? Every time they meet a prospect, okay, the chess game is beginning, and I'm going to convince the other person to buy my product because it's going to help her. It's actually going to help her life, her career, her marriage, whatever. So there are people who love selling because they see it as a challenge. The fourth way to make money is when you're a consultant. Okay, so consultants typically are people who analyze problems and they find the root cause of the problem, and then they provide a solution, and sometimes they implement the solution. So consulting is it's good if you have a lot of expertise and you have a lot of experience. And finally, the last way to make money is when you create products, and your products can be digital or it can be physical. Like I have a friend who's creating handmade jewelry, so she creates necklaces, wristbands, earrings, etc. And so she's selling her physical creations in North America. And also, like, if you're creating digital products, you can see right away that if you're teaching in a Zoom session or in a live stream, which is what I'm doing right now, at the end of your teaching session, you have a video that you can sell. So not only is teaching a lot of fun, like right now, like I have a lot of fun teaching because I'm just talking. I love the sound of my voice. No, I'm just kidding. But, I have a lot of fun teaching. But at the end of this session, like about 20 minutes from now, I'm going to stop teaching and I'm going to have a video recording. So in other words, I'm teaching and I'm creating at the same time, okay, which is very, very interesting. It would be very hard for me and for most people to just sit at home alone and create a video course. It's hard. I need to have an audience. And so when you teach and you have an audience who's asking questions, then at the same time you're creating. I think it's one of the rare situations where you're doing two things at the same time. Now, of course, after I finish teaching in this live stream, I have to edit the video recording a little bit. I have to insert like images and create PowerPoint slides because this might not seem professional, but by and large, it's amazing because when I'm teaching, I'm also creating 80% of a video course, which is quite unique. So now that you know the 5 basic ways to make money, you can understand that in this workshop series, I'm trying to help you to move from offering just a service to actually teaching what it is that you know. Like, it's very unlikely that you're going to be able to sit at home alone and write a book teaching people what you're currently doing in your job, because you just don't know what people want to learn. Like, you might have 10 years of experience or 20 years of experience, but how do you know that within your vast knowledge, how do you know which pieces of knowledge, which framework, which methodology that people want to learn from you and are willing to pay? The only way you're going to know is if you teach in a Zoom session and you allow people to ask you questions, okay? And so imagine that, just going to write a reminder to myself. Imagine that this is your knowledge, right, in your head. So you have a lot of knowledge. Let's say you have 10 years of experience. But how do you know which knowledge you have, which people are willing to pay for. The only way to know is if you create webinars and you allow people to ask you questions. So if somebody, so let's say here you have a student asks you a question like, hey John, how were you able to do this? Well, then you respond with your knowledge and you're sharing with your student, and you know that this knowledge is very valuable because your student asked for it, right? Somebody, let's say Susan, is going to ask you another question, but how do you do this? And then you know that this knowledge is valuable because it was requested by by a particular student, right? So based on this experience, you can identify the specific pieces of knowledge that you have, and later on, you can double zero in on them, and you can create an ebook based on those two pieces of knowledge. So teaching here is really, really, and this is very important to understand, it's really not about giving a lengthy course of 15 weeks where you're just going through the PowerPoint slides and you're going blah 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 blah. No, that's the old way of teaching. That's the educational system, which is not really focused on results. The teaching that will allow you to make money is much simpler. It's much simpler. It's simply about helping people to replicate your results by performing the same actions that you're performing. And on that note, I want to give you I have a couple of minutes, but I want to give you a very, very valuable framework that will allow you to systematically extract your knowledge. Because like I said, you have, the problem is that you have too much knowledge. Well, it's not really a problem, but I mean, for a lot of people on LinkedIn, they know so much, and they have so much to share. But it's not about sharing your knowledge, okay? Like, it's about giving people exactly what they want to learn. And this is a mistake that I've made over and over again. People are not really interested in knowing everything that you know. They're interested in knowing exactly what it is that you know that has been that has allowed you to produce certain results, specific results. So the framework that I want to share with you is called the FARM framework. This is very powerful. I mean, I can't believe I'm giving this to you for free. So the FARM framework allows you to extract your most valuable knowledge. So what is your most valuable knowledge, MVK? Well, your most valuable knowledge, which you can make a lot of money from, okay, this is really important. It's all about the money. Your most valuable knowledge has to be based on a framework. The framework is like the metal frame inside of any building. So if you ever come across any construction site where a building is being erected, you will see quite clearly that the first thing to do is that they lay down the foundation, and then they set up the metal structure, because the metal structure is really ensures that the building is going to be solid. So in the same way, whatever you're teaching, you need to extract or create a framework. And the framework will allow you to teach effectively and will allow your students to learn. I'm going to talk more about the framework later on and give you examples. But the second element of the FARM framework is that you have to identify specifically the actions that you took. Okay, so you have to remember exactly step by step the actions that you took in order to produce the results. Okay, the actions in a particular sequence, and you have to also include like quality assurance. I'll talk more about that later, but quality assurance or quality control allow you to identify the specific actions that you took and to correct your actions if you took the wrong actions. The third requirement is that whatever you're teaching, your most valuable knowledge has to lead to a specific result. So you remember earlier we talked about omelet making knowledge? Well, if I were to teach, let's say, a 10-year-old kid how to make an omelet, well, I have to tell him that, look, kid, after I teach you and after you start doing it, you're going to have a nice omelet. You're going to eat it. Well, the omelet that he can eat, that's the result. Okay, so you have to clearly mention the results that your students and your clients will get after they take the actions that you recommend within the framework that you explain and describe. The last thing is very, very important because, and this is a part where so many colleges and teachers and universities are failing. They're failing because they're neglecting this last part, which is crucial. And this part allows you to go from theory to real world results. And the last part is M, and it stands for measuring, monitoring, and generally speaking, managing. And what we mean by managing is that no matter what you do, you're going to be making a mistake. Okay, you're going to be making mistakes because the real world is complicated. Now, I used the example of omelet making, but of course, when you make an omelet, like you're in control of what's going on in your kitchen. Nobody's going to interact with your kitchen, right? So it's a procedure, it's a recipe. But what's happening in real life is that it's not a kitchen. There are many things, many people that you cannot control. And so you need to have a way to measure your results, monitor your results, and manage your process and your results so that you can get exactly the results that you want, right? So even if at the beginning you get like a bad result, which is fine because you can use this management system to correct your bad results so that it becomes a good result. So don't assume that whatever you're learning or teaching, don't assume that your students will automatically, automatically get positive results, because chances are the results they're going to get are going to be bad, right? So you have to include in your teachings, in your workshops, mechanisms, for them to measure, monitor, and manage their results, their processes, their actions, so that the bad results become good results. And of course, that's where you utilize framework or frameworks. So that's it, guys. Like, this is really the secret sauce that I'm going to be expanding upon after you join the Intellectual Capital Academy. I'm going to help you step by step, using this framework so that you can extract your most valuable knowledge. And then once you have this most valuable knowledge, because of this procedure, this process, then you're going to be able to create information products here, and you're going to be able to export, sell, market that knowledge to the world and make a lot of money. Most of this money is going to be passive income, and so you're not going to be restricted to a service or to a teaching. You're going to be able to really create a digital product. And of course, the amazing thing about digital products is that they're so easy to sell. So for example, if you're creating a video course on any topic and the video course has 10 different videos of 20 minutes, you can just give away the first 3 modules, the first 3 videos, and if people like it, they will buy the entire course. So there's not much selling going on, and there are many platforms like Gumroad or Teachable.com where you can easily upload your course, and you give away the first 3 modules. People like it, they buy the entire course. And if your course sells for $100, which has found to be the optimal price, then you're going to be making, let's say you have 5,000 clients. Well, you're going to be making $500,000 from your video course, and most of this money is going to come in the form of passive income. You're not going to have to work. So if you stick to a service-oriented career, you're going to have to work every day, or not every day, but 5 days a week, 9 to 5, and that's the best part of every day when you think about it. I'm financially free for the last 25 years, so I can do whatever I want with my time. I can travel to Europe, to Vietnam, to China. I can go on a cruise vacation. I can spend time with my friends, etc. I have freedom. So if you want freedom and if you want money, the only way is to create a product where you teach people how to do something. And tons and tons of more people, more and more, are doing this because that's the smart way to live. You know, like if you have been brainwashed by your teachers, your parents, who tell you that, oh, you have to do a job. It's your identity. It's your purpose. Well, that's fine. I'm not going to judge people, but trust me, I've crossed over to the other side, and I've been doing this for 25 years, and I can tell you that. And I've been an employee before in the 1990s, right? For about 10 years, or more like 7 years, I've been working in a company, but since June 2000, so that's 25 years ago, I've been, free. And so I want to help people to cross this barrier. I want to show to people that it's possible. It's going to require some effort, but when you join the Intellectual Capital Academy, I'm going to help you every step of the way, because I've done all of this in the last 20 years. To me, it's like, it's like second nature. I do it unconsciously. So when I talk to you in a Zoom session, I know exactly what problem, what obstacle you're facing. I know exactly the solution to your problem. So it's not going to be hard for me to help you, but you have to make the executive decision to not leave your job. I'm not asking anyone to quit their job, because if you have a mortgage to pay, if you have children to take care of, or a family to feed, obviously you want to keep your job. But the beauty of this is that you can keep your job, whatever service you offer to your employer, but at the same time, in your spare time, in a fun, casual Zoom session with me and other members, we're going to help you to create information products that you can sell to the world. So that's my promise to you. And the Intellectual Capital Academy costs only $100 for the whole year. Or if you're not sure, you can just pay like $30 per month, and you can cancel at any time. And I'm going to really teach you how you can go from offering just a service to teaching. There's a certain way to teach, right? I'm going to teach you the Instructional Design Framework. ADDIE stands for Analysis, Design, Develop, Implementation, and Evaluation. So I'm going to help you to teach your material. I'm going to help you to create digital products, video courses, ebooks. And, I'm going to teach you also how to sell your digital products. But like I said, it's not going to be difficult to sell, because you just offer the first 3 modules of a video course, or the first 3 chapters of an ebook, and you're going to be able to make money. And I've made a lot of money doing this, so I know it by heart. So anyways, guys, thank you for being there. I hope this workshop is giving you ideas and inspiring you to look into your most valuable asset, which is your knowledge. This is really the elephant in the room, or the asset that is most undervalued. Because today people talk about AI this and AI that, but they completely forget about what is their most valuable asset, which is their knowledge. And once you identify your most valuable knowledge, then you can create so many different products from your knowledge, and you're going to be able to make money quite easily and have fun meeting new people and making an impact in the world. But it all comes from your knowledge. Okay, so anyways, guys, thank you for being there, and it's been a lot of fun. And if you have questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next live stream.